Hi Tea Society, welcome back to the Antisocial Planet. Today we are checking out the BOCA dance practice. I'm so excited because I got to see a little bit of the choreography in the actual music video, and instantly I was like, I need to actually properly watch what this choreo is because it looks amazing. And I know that there are some special performances, maybe like a zombie version or whatever, that I definitely need to get to, especially as we get into spooky season. But I wanted to see the dance practice first, right? Just look at the choreo and not get distracted by the spookiness of it all. So I'm very excited to get into this. So let's just check out the video. What do you got for me this time? Ooh. All right. Little intro. Ooh, we got props, we got the flags. Good pass-off movement. Oh, that was the part that I saw it that I was like, yes! Wait, okay, before we get to the obvious part, because I know. But that leaning part, I remember seeing that in the music video and being like, that's so cool. But lots of rigid movements happening. There's a lot with the hands. We have the kind of claw that they have with the hand, the mouth movement that they have later on. But they're incorporating it in a lot of different parts of this. There's also just the dancers early on. We have the rigid arms being held up as well. There's something a little bit militaristic in the way that certain sharp movements are happening with the backup dancers, which is interesting. Great pass off here where we have the hands grasping, pulling Yuhyun from the back of the formation to the side so that she can sing her part. Lots of great little silhouettes that they're making. That's good. Ooh, good pass off too with the two sides. Also love the jump into her part. Backup dancers are doing great in this choreo, just generally. Love that we have them doing their own choreography and then Dami syncing in and then going out of sync again, which is just interesting. I think also given some of the context of the song being about, she's talking about being a paradox and kind of not fitting in with other stuff and kind of being contrary. There's lots of stuff within the song of BOCA that talks about doing their own thing in spite of people having their opinions, voicing their opinions, having loud opinions about them. So having her out of sync and then going into sync, just because sometimes I do my own thing doesn't mean that I don't understand how the game works, right? So it's just interesting storytelling there. Love that elongated movement on Paradox too. Good movement across to reset the formation. Ooh. Beautiful, like, cannon movement there. Dang. Sua, ma'am, I am trying to talk about how the backup dancers are really helping out, and then there's cannons and stuff, and it's really good. And then, why are we on the floor? Why? No reason. There's no reason to be on the floor. Good use of layers. Ooh, I like that leg movement out too. Ooh, okay, no, before we get into like the choreo and stuff, love how we're doing this wonderful like cannon effect, but it's like very deliberately out of sync. There's enough time between the movements following whoever's at the center that there's a delay in it in a way that it's not supposed to be like this really smooth movement down the formation. I love that we have Yuhyun controlling the two different sides of it as well. Lots of use of like, two sides, which I think is really interesting. Also, given the context of the song of it's really easy to say something when you don't have to look someone in the face, but you don't know the other side of the story, right? You don't know what idols are going through, performers are going through. They don't know what you're going through. If someone does leave an awful comment to them, they don't know what that person is going through, made them think that was okay. There's always two sides to the story. There's always this separation between what we perceive to be happening or what we assume is happening and the reality of what actually is happening and what someone is going through internally. So having this two sides out of sync and coming together and then separating, this constant movement between the two sides is really good. Also, it's just really dynamic, right? It's really fun to watch from a performance standpoint, to just have movement happening at different parts of the stage and great formation changes in this too. I love that we have a water bottle to help us be like, this is center. Love that leg out. that delay with Yuhyun sinking in too. Oh, I love that move. Xian, ma'am, please. Ooh, I love that before we get into Rapper Gayan. But that having the silence over the lip and then having it wiped away and then we have the mouth movement, that's really cool too. Xian though here. Like, unnecessary. Love that little sequence. Ooh. Ooh, no, Dami. No. No, I remember this body roll, but I love the power that Gayan came in. Love the use of the props with the flags. Really, like, all the dancers in this, outside of Dreamcatcher, excellent job. Beautiful in this. And I think that they're really adding to the energy. They're putting in so much more movement. They're having more extended movements. They're doing extra movement when whoever's at the center is doing something else more closed off and controlled in kind of their own space, which I think just adds a lot of energy to the overall performance. And there's almost this feeling of combatedness too, right? Like there's all these moments of interacting with either like a hand held out or the flag being put out, like this connection and then disconnect between the members of Dreamcatcher and like the backup dancers or like different members of the group, which I also think is really interesting. See, like that movement in towards her is like combative. Dami, ma'am. What's the wiping your hair out of your face movement for? Sorry, just for personal reasons, I'm gonna have to go back. I don't have any notes particularly. I want to make sure that you saw all of the details there. Oof, they gotta hand off those flags really fast too. Queen Sua just coming out strong. Dang! Love that swinging movement though. Ooh, good reveal with the flag. Wow, okay, so the flags though are like the props, the way that they handed those off to the other dancers there, you can see it in the background. It's fast that they have to hand those off and have them unroll the right way, right? You have to have them oriented the right way and then using them as part of the choreography and then getting rid of them, getting them out of the way before you start to do the rest of the choreo. Props when you're dancing is so difficult. I say as someone who has used props in choreography, and it just adds so many more complications to what you're doing. So definitely shout out to the backup dancers for doing that and the members of Dreamcatcher of interacting with that in the right way, because you now have more stuff that you just need to think about that isn't just dancing and having enough space for everyone do what they need to do. I also love at this part that swing movement, slowing down, having that elongated movement in contrast to some of the more aggressive, hard-hitting movements. I really like that there are these moments of aggression or combat kind of movements between the members of Dreamcatcher and the backup dancers, because it's just adding one energy and dynamics to the overall number, but it also goes into that feeling of fighting back against people saying things that aren't true or are hurtful or that are unnecessary, right? So it's this feeling as if people are coming at you even though you're not doing anything, right? We had Gayan and her part where she was just standing there and they had that sharp movement inwards with the flags, right? And it looked like it was lining up with like her head. So it's like people coming at them even though they're just trying to perform. They're just trying to be idols and musicians, and people are taking offense to that in and of itself, let alone anything that they've said or done. So it's really interesting to add that into the dynamic of these moments of the backup dancers being in sync with them, then going out of sync with them, then having these moments of aggression mixed with these more softer movements. It's just a really interesting, tumultuous dynamic with the movements that just adds a lot of interest. And I think that it really talks about what they wanted to communicate in the song of it is tumultuous, like there's so much going on and it's hard to keep up with all of it, and at some point you just have to stop listening, right? Like you just have to keep making stuff because the background noise is too much to be focusing in on it. So it's just like, it's interesting to have all those elements coming through with a visual storytelling of the choreography. There's also like this follow the leader kind of movement too with some of the cannons, which is interesting. Did Shin put her hair back at some point? Did I just not clock that it was back before? Ooh. Ooh, I remember this too. Okay, no, I know they're about to go into a bunch of stuff. One, the lift. Again, we're just adding in complications with the choreography, right? Talk about props before. Now we have lifts. Always complicated. Again, there's this feeling of one of the members will do something, and then I've talked about cannons, there's like this delay in it, but they are copying, right? So it has this follow the leader feeling of, even though you may be saying all these things about me now, even though you may be passing judgment now, at some point you're going to be following my lead. At some point you're going to be taking the same path as me and trying the same things because you see how successful I am. It has that feeling to it as well. Their silhouettes are really good too. They have lots of moments where they slow down and they just have really interesting silhouettes that they're using, and just like letting them sit there, which is really interesting too. Like really great image there with Gio in the center. Ooh, love that leg swing around too behind them. Dang, Yuyan. Ooh, love that interlaced with the hands over the mouth too. Silencing others, but also silencing yourself. Interesting. All the backup dancers too, with just Gio that doesn't have her mouth covered, so it's like everyone else is silent and they get to have their moment to actually say their part. Oh, I was also thinking of the movement before we get into the chorus, the first couple of choruses, where they have the wrist movement. Haven't we seen that in something else? One of their other choreographies? And wasn't it like I remember someone talking about it being a reference to being like handcuffed or like being shackled in some way, like being restrained, which I feel like also fits with this story of them saying, I'm going to silence you. I'm going to make it so that you don't have anything to say anymore. I even talked about in the video where the couple of the scenes felt a bit like a lineup shot, like a mug shot. So interesting to have that imagery there as well. Let me know if it is. I feel like it is. Why can't I remember which choreo it was from? I'm sure I'll think of it at some point, or someone will point it out to me, but overall, great dynamics in this one. Definitely one of my favorite choreographies that I've seen from them so far, which just great use of layers, great use of different movements, speed of movements, sharp movements. I feel like the backup dancers were doing a lot more of these like sharp, rigid, really like hard hitting movements in great contrast to some of the softer, more drawn out movements of Dreamcatcher in the center. So that difference between aggression and meeting that with, I don't know, cool indifference and more like controlled movements. So having the contrast between those two. Also, the backup dancers doing a lot in this, between the props, the lifts, a lot of the different images, and there were lots of moments where we only had 1, 2, or 3 of the members there at one time, which is also quite interesting. So a lot of the formation work in this was with the backup dancers. So I just want to give them the props that they're due. I know that it looks like it's their core group that they usually have, and they're always amazing in their dance routines, but bravo all around. Yeah, definitely one of my favorite choreographies that I've checked out so far, and I feel like there is a lot of opportunity to add in fun things with that, because I feel like there are moments where the members themselves are very deliberately holding back in their movements, in direct contrast to the backup dancers, because it's supposed to be this very controlled response to the aggression that is being thrown at them, and for them to be persisting in spite of people trying to stop them. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity in that with like live performances to be able to play with different focal moments on the members, maybe props. Again, I know that there's some like special performances that they did as well, so I'm excited to see what kinds of things they end up doing with this. But I loved it, loved so many different things about it, and I think that they did a really good job with it. There were a few moments where I was like, definitely like some moments in the background where I could see like them correcting for some things, which I always like to see. Honestly, I feel like perfection in any kind of performance is unrealistic. And whenever I get to see like a dance practice and there are cuts in it, I'm always a little bit disappointed, because I'm like, I get that some choreographies are like really tough, but if you put a cut in it, I'm like, it's because something happened and there was some kind of time restraint and you wanted it to look perfect enough that you took that out. But there are some moments where you can see them handing off the flags or getting into position or even redirecting with certain movements so that they can reset something else in the background, that are things that I like to see, honestly, things that I like to see, especially in live performances, because I think the way that you correct for things, or the way that you have to do, I don't know, stagehand things whilst also doing choreography, is just part of being a performer, right? And again, as somebody who's done choreography with props, I'm like, yeah, I've done that. I've done it where you just have to you have to switch into a bit of a stagehand mode where you have to get something off of the stage or get something to where it's supposed to be or be at the right marker, and you just have to deal with it in the moment. Loved it all around. Can't wait to check out some of the other performances of BOCA and continue to check out more of the dance practices from Dreamcatcher, because I always have a good time with them. But I hope you enjoyed watching that along with me. You can click this place to go to my previous reactions, or you can subscribe to me next time I post a Dreamcatcher reaction. I will see you in the next video. Bye.